Okay, so ecology basics. First thing it says regulation means control. Okay, when I think of that, I think for ecology, think about predator and prey. In the video last night you watched showed how the predator relationship controls the prey relationship. Or the predator number controls the prey number. Y'all know predator is what eats the prey, right? Everybody knows that. So it's really common sense. If there's a lot of eaters, there's not going to be a lot of food. Does that make sense? So the more predators there are, the less prey there are. Does that make sense? A lot of eaters, not as much food. Okay, well what if the prey number increases? Then the predator number can increase, right? So as prey increases, predator increases. So really the prey population, the amount of food, is going to control the amount of eaters. And I think really it makes sense. Animals do two things. They eat and they look for mates. That's really the two things that like big mammals do. And when you think of predators, you think of like lions and tigers and
bears. Oh my.
Bears, oh my, that's right. So if there's a lot of food, they can spend their time mating. When they spend their time mating, they have babies, right? So a lot of food means that the predator population is going to increase. A lot of prey means predator increase. Okay, so that first thing just says regulation is control. Okay, the second thing you already know is transpiration. Transpiration is the loss of water through the stomata. What do you know about that? Somebody tell me something about the stomata. Holes in the leaves, usually, but not always, right? What else?
Can plants, sometimes they usually open them at night.
Good. Can plants open their stomata at night, close them during the day? Good. What else? Yeah, you're right. The stomata, the purpose of the stomata is to take in CO2 and let out oxygen, but unintentionally, accidentally, it lets water out, right? And that would be transpiration. Okay, good. The next thing, it says water can absorb huge amounts of energy, but it's all because of the hydrogen bonds. Water can absorb energy. Okay, and I think, somebody tell me some stuff you know about water. Good. It's polar. What does that mean? Polar. Good. Opposite charges. Oxygen's negative, hydrogen's positive. What'd you say? It's adhesive. Water sticks to other things. So it's cohesive. Water sticks to water. What'd you say? It's got a high specific heat. That's really important for weeks like this week. Or months like this month. Right now it's 65 degrees outside. That's why I don't feel good. Last week it was 25 degrees. Or less. It was like crazy cold. Okay, so the fish here in Trussville, Alabama, they can't do that, like 20 degrees, 60 degrees. They can't go back and forth like humans can. So water, luckily, is resistant to change temperature. So, like it was 20 degrees, but the water was probably warmer than that. And it would take like weeks of 20-degree weather for our temperature in the water to drop. Okay, right now it's 65 degrees outside, and the water is probably a little bit cooler than 65 degrees. Last week because it was 25. So water is resistant to change temperature. It takes weeks of really warm weather to get the water to get warm. It takes weeks of really cold weather to get the water to turn cold. So it's resistant to change. Or we call it high specific heat. Okay, what else? Come on, you know some more things about water. Surface tension, so the little bugs can crawl on it, right? Okay, well, do what?
2 hydrogens.
And why are all these properties so available? Hydrogen bonds, right? Water has hydrogen bonds, and that's why it's cohesive and adhesive, and it's got specific heat. Okay, so water has, it says, because of its 4 possible hydrogen bonds, water can bind to 3 other water molecules. So 4 of them can bind together. So when the sun hits it, it can absorb a lot of energy. So water can absorb a lot of energy because of the 4 bonds. And remember, when does sunlight split water? Photosynthesis, the light reaction, right? Good. Okay. Ecology is the study, so this is our first thing, the study of interactions occurring between organisms. This is our first unit where we're looking at big. Like we looked at cells and neurons and hormones and DNA, and now starting with this test, we're looking at like the whole ecosystem. So the animals and the plants and the bacteria and how they all work together. Surely you know a lot about biomes, right? A lot about biomes? So but this is what this test is all about. It's all about biomes. And do y'all remember on the third test how we talked about how cells interact together? Yes? Okay, well, ecosystems interact together. Like the animals and plants interact together. Okay, so ecology also studies location and abundance of species. And then, so we're going to just talk about like, you know, there's pine trees here, but there's more pine trees northern states. Okay, abiotic and biotic. You knew those words already, right? What does abiotic mean? Without life. So examples of abiotic things would be, come on, you watched a video on this last night. Wind, water, temperature, light. Light is huge, important for the ecosystem. Why? Well, why do we need light? For photosynthesis, for plants to feed. Plants feed the whole world. Not just plants, but autotrophs, like algae and plants. Feed the whole world. So, do you think that light plays a big part in the ecosystem? Yeah, like a huge part, right? You think water plays a big part in the ecosystem? Why do we need water? Come on, make me proud. Not because you're thirsty. Come on. Why does the ecosystem need water? Do what? For photosynthesis, right? We got the sunlight splits the water. No water, no photosynthesis. And then of course for the animals to drink. So water plays a big part in it. And then I kind of skipped down. So the abiotic factors are down: temperature, water, sunlight, wind, and then rocks and soil. You think rocks? What do rocks provide for the ecosystem? Come on. Phosphorus. Good job. They do provide some, like he said, structure. They do provide some homes, like roly-polies live under the rocks and moss grows on top of the rocks. Right, so do you kind of see how it all plays together? Okay, and then biotic factors, you know, that's going to be animals, plants, fungi, protists, and bacteria. Don't forget about bacteria when you include biotic things. Okay, I'm going to give you something, and you're going to tell me biotic or abiotic. Ready? Nitrogen. Abiotic. That's an abiotic. That's a cycle. Okay. Water. Good. Okay, as long as you got those two. And then D says another aspect of ecology is ecology over time, so long periods. And your next test is evolution. So the next two tests are big picture ideas, like looking at like physically big areas, so the world and stuff. Okay, biogeography is the distribution of species. We have deer here, kangaroo not here. Why? Anybody know? Kangaroos are in Australia. Does anybody know why? So this is an example of biogeography, us studying where animals live and why. Come on, sophomores, y'all know this?
They can't swim over here.
They can't swim over here. That's true. What? The kangaroos can't adapt here, but why? Because we have the things that they need. Kangaroos and deer compete with each other. They have the same role in the environment, and so they couldn't survive together. They would compete for food. So deer and kangaroo play the same role.
So there's no deer in Australia.
So there's no deer in Australia. There's no kangaroo here.
So like kangaroo hunt?
I would rather have kangaroos.
How cute! I know, how cute.
Kangaroos are dangerous.
I know. Okay, but that's just one example of why. And some scientists believe that at one time kangaroos and deer were in both locations, and all the kangaroos died in the United States, and all the deer died there. Or you know that like when all the continents were together, what's that called? Pangea. When all the continents were together, the kangaroos just didn't live. They didn't survive. Here.
Have we found kangaroo fossils?
I don't know. You look that up and tell us tomorrow. That'd be awesome if you could tell us that tomorrow.
Look at
But that was just an example. I was just trying to get you to think of the study of how organisms live in their locations. Okay, species richness. Pay attention to this or you're going to get confused because there's a term later that sounds like it. Species richness is the number of different species within that area. So like here we have pine trees and oak trees and maple trees and black squirrels and brown squirrels, and we have these mushrooms, we have these bacteria. So it's not like how many pine trees there are. There's how many, species richness is how many different species there are. Does that make sense? So I'm not saying there's 300 oak trees. I'm saying there's oak trees and there's pine trees and there's one, you're counting them one each time. So species richness is the number of different species within an area. We would say the rainforest is very rich in species, but the tundra is not. Got it? Good. Okay. Normal species, that's just species that normally live there. They live there because they're best for that climate. It's simple. Why does saltwater fish not live in the Cahaba? Because they can't live in the fresh water, right? And so if at one time there were fish of all kinds in the Cahaba, the ones that survived for that environment were able to reproduce. So that's all that's there now, is the ones that can survive in the Cahaba. Does that make sense? Kind of, sort of? Do what? Yeah, there's snails. There's a little ecosystem over there. It's got snails and fish all in my pond. Okay, my fish tank. Okay, transplant species, and there's a picture of zebra mussels up here. A transplant, like a transplant organ, you know what that is. It's where we take a species and we bring it over here. So zebra mussels is the one that's the picture. It says transplant species, species from another area living in a foreign environment. Accidental transplant species, zebra mussels, and then we're going to talk about fire ants. But zebra mussels, okay, what's the problem with having a species come over here? Like, let's say we took a mussel, zebra mussel for example, and we let it go in the Cahaba out there. What's wrong with that? Yeah, so it's foreign, but who cares? Okay, it'll mess up the ecosystem. How? They don't. Okay, wait. Shh, say it again. They don't have any natural. Better than that. She said enemies. Predators. So if we, let's say for example we let these zebra mussels out into the Cahaba. They don't have any predators. So if nothing eats them, then what's going to happen? They're going to overpopulate. Okay, so we're like, I got it. So we now got a lot of zebra mussels. Okay, well, how does that affect the ecosystem if zebra mussels are overpopulated?
They'll take away other animals.
Bingo. They're going to compete with other mussels for food. So not only do they not have a predator, they overpopulate, and they eat the food, like maybe they eat algae, of other mussels. So they compete for that. Okay? So the other mussels die. Let's say they run out of food, and they die off. Okay? Who cares?
Their predator will die.
Exactly. Josh is onto it. The people, they're the organism that did eat the other mussel. Does that make sense? Y'all follow me? So if we let zebra mussels out, they're going to overpopulate. They're going to compete with the other types of mussels for food. Well, the predator of the other mussels, that predator is going to die. And you get the picture now. What's going to happen to that predator of that food is going to die. Are y'all following me? So it's like a chain reaction, but it takes a long time. So sometimes organisms were brought over here intentionally, and sometimes they were brought over here accidentally. And the zebra mussels was an accident. Kudzu was brought over intentionally. I don't know how they got brought over here. Kudzu was brought over intentionally from Japan. People thought that kudzu would help with erosion. It was just great in Japan. They didn't have any erosion. But there's no predator. There's no natural predator for kudzu over here. So you know kudzu. You've seen this before, right? Yeah. My mom has it like all beside her house. It's really hard to kill. There's no little bugs that feed on it. It's not. Yeah, it's not that kudzu is like a turbo plant. It's not that it's like a great strong plant. It's that there's no natural predators. So they made. I got an idea. We'll just make a bug, a crossbreed between like a ladybug and something else. Then we'll eat kudzu. That's a great idea. Except what?
They're everywhere.
They're everywhere, and they don't have a predator. People try to control the ecosystem. It doesn't work. Okay, so you got kudzu. Here's a picture of the fire ants. Fire ants were brought over in a thing of soil. And I know the story how these got over here accidentally. It was in like they were getting soil from another part of the world, and it was on a boat, I guess like a package of soil. I don't know how you get soil in packages or boxes or whatever. Anyway, there were fire ants in the soil, and so it actually started in Mobile, Alabama. So sorry us, but you can see how it slowly is coming up. But fire ants are a problem because there's no predator for them, and they hurt. I guess South America. South America. Okay. Okay, and then we talked about the kudzu. The next one is the there's your fire ants. I have a video for the fire ants.
For untold millennia, the great rainforest.
All right, let's try this one more time.
For untold millennia, the great rainforests of Central America have been kept alive by one of the tiniest and least understood of creatures. But now, their fragile world has been invaded by an alien species from Africa, the result of a scientific experiment gone horribly wrong. One man, entomologist David Rubik, believes these imported African bees are edging out the native honeybees and damaging the rainforest. He's searching for evidence.
At stake here is the future of the rainforest environments. The heart and soul of the rainforest relates to its pollinators and the things that make all the plants reproduce.
It all started in Brazil in 1957. Scientists were studying an aggressive type of bee from Africa when a few of them escaped. It was a mistake. It would have enormous consequences. The African bees proved extremely adaptable to their new home. Their numbers soared, and they formed voracious swarms that spread throughout South America and up to the southwestern United States. Easily agitated and quick to attack, they were dubbed killer bees, known to sting humans to death. Swarms react faster than other honeybees and had been known to chase victims for a quarter of a mile. But Rubik says they pose a far greater threat to the fragile rainforest than they do to people.
So this is one of the millions. These bees have done something no other bee ever did. These things have sucked up most of the resources that are out there for bees and for other animals too. Not just bees visit flowers for food, like birds, bats, butterflies, other things like the same food. And it's not just here and there, it's really everywhere. All the vast forest areas we think of as absolute wildlife preserves have been violated by this bee. This bee doesn't belong in any of them. It lives in all of them. It's not going to go away.
Can native South American honeybees survive the onslaught of their killer cousins? Abandoned native bee nest suggests it's a losing battle.
The disturbing reality is that it is not a natural part of this community, yet it has become part of nature. And ironically, man has put it there, but man can't take it away.
No one knows if the native bees will survive the alien onslaught. or ultimately perish. But Rubik intends to continue monitoring the fate of this little native. It's been a staple of the rainforest since the time of the ancients.
Okay, so that was just kind of one example that I thought was good. Was anybody thinking about the Hunger Games? You know, the bees, and is that the first book? Do what? Yeah, and then you know, she tried to cut it, and I don't know. Okay, I haven't seen it in a long time. So there's your African killer bees, and they make honey. Do what?
They make honey too with the rubber.
Okay, the next part of the notes talks about climate, and you know what climate is. It's like your temperature and your rainfall. Like, so the climate here is crazy these days. The average weather conditions for an environment usually measured on yearly or monthly basis, but normally we would say in Alabama we have a warm climate, more so than some places. Weather, that's the daily conditions. Y'all know James Spann, right, with the suspenders? Everybody does. Okay, biomes, you know all about those. Refer to large ecosystems. What biome do we live in? Come on, make me proud. Deciduous forest. What does that mean, deciduous? The leaves fall off. Did y'all do a biome project and you don't know what deciduous means? Okay. I forgive you. But coniferous forest, or evergreen forest, the leaves don't fall off like pine trees. Now, we have some pine trees here, yes? But predominantly, it's deciduous. Look out that window right there. Predominantly, those trees don't have leaves. Predominantly, you see branches and stuff. But there are a few pine trees out there. Okay, but really, biomes are categorized by their climate, right? We know tundra is cold. The rainforest is hot and wet, right? So all these biomes have a big climate areas. So, okay, so if you think about the Hadley model, it's really common sense. Look at the world here. And if I were you, I'd probably draw a world. I'm going to draw one over here. Draw you a nice circle. Let's see if I can. All right. Okay, so right in the middle, we call the equator, right? That's where the sun hits. It's hot at the equator. What do you know of that's at the equator? The rainforest, right? The rainforests are like all right in here. So maybe right in rainforest. So the rainforests are in between the tropics. The rainforests are in between the tropics, and the tropics are 23.5 degrees north and south. So the rainforest is in between here. I'm not going to write rainforest. Y'all just write it on yours. Okay, so common sense tells you that the sun is beaming down on the equator, right? And you know the Earth's at a little bit of a tilt. But the sun is beaming down on the equator. So what happens when there's a lot of sunshine? It's hot. Okay, what else? It rains a lot. Why does it rain a lot where there's a lot of sun?
Because it makes the water evaporate.
Okay, good. So you took 7th grade science. That's good. Where there's a lot of sun, think about it. When there's a lot of sun, there's a lot of evaporation. A lot of evaporation, a lot of precipitation. You know what the word precipitation means? Rain. Good. Rain or snow, right? Okay, so think about it. Where there's a lot of sunshine, there's a lot of evaporation. There's a lot of evaporation, there's a lot of rain. Okay, so at the rainforest or at the equator, there's a lot of rain because the sun is right there. And because there's mostly water right there. So there's mostly water in this area. Okay, so on your notes it says, do y'all see that sentence? Due to the intense heat. Highlight that sentence. Due to the intense heat, the water evaporates and rises. What's it called when water evaporates out of a plant? Boom, good. Okay, it then begins to move towards the poles. As it moves higher in the air and towards the poles, the water vapor cools and condenses into rain. Okay, so looking at this picture, you can just kind of see, and I'll draw it on the globe here, but the tropics are right in there. So and it's mostly water right there. It's cooler at the poles, the North and South Pole. And then it says as the water rises, it cools and condenses. Okay, well, I lived in a 2-story house when I was growing up, and we had one air conditioner unit. So now I guess it's more common or more popular to put 2 air conditioner units in a 2-story house. So there's a thermostat upstairs and a thermostat downstairs. Well, that wasn't the way it was in my house where I grew up. And so upstairs, it would always be hot, and downstairs, it would always be cold. Well, my dad spent a lot of time downstairs because he had, I guess that was like his little area where he watched TV, his recliner. You know how good dads are. And my mom and dad would fuss over the air. My mom wanted it to be cool upstairs. That's where she was. My dad wanted it to be, warmer downstairs. And so my dad so I can always remember that cold air is going to be lower and the warm air rises. So I guess that's the way to say it, is that warm air rises. But my dad, the breaker box for the electricity was downstairs. So my dad, instead of going upstairs and cutting the air on, where my mom would know, he would cut the air off at the breaker box downstairs, and they were getting fusses about it. So do y'all see what I'm talking about? Like he would just cut the air conditioner one off on the big breaker box. And she'd be like, well, the air's not running. There's something wrong with the air. After a couple times, she figured it out, that he was cutting it off at the breaker box. But so just remember that the hot air rises, and that's gonna create a circulation of the air. So when the cool air in the rain, and then it kind of circles because the movement. Then on the next page, highlight where it talks about where under mountains, where it says on the other side of the mountains. So the rain is coming up, but on the other side of the mountains it's going to be dry because the wind can't carry the precipitation over to the other side of the mountain. So places like California and Nevada, those are really dry areas. So do you see under mountains it says shadow side of the mountains you get deserts typically? Okay, but that's like the big effects of geography and the weather. So small effects, oceans, mountains, and ponds. So oceans, it says these act as heat banks. Why are they heat banks? Yeah, because it doesn't change temperature. So the water absorbs a lot of energy. They act as heat banks, highlight specific heat, absorbs sunlight energy. Mountains, these create the rain shadow effect. You can see the picture here. So see how the wind doesn't carry the rain over the mountain? So over on the east side of the United States, it's dry. Like the deserts, absolutely the deserts. Mm-hmm. Have you ever been to Las Vegas or California? Or has anybody ever been to the Grand Canyon? I haven't, but I want to go one day. Will y'all pay for me to go? Okay. But if you ever go, I have been to Las Vegas, and it's really dry there. Like, it's hard to breathe. It's so hot. It's not, like here when it's hot, it's like humid, and the air is thick, I feel like, to breathe. In Nevada, it's really dry. And so it's like you're really hot, but you don't get very sweaty. It's just different. Okay, so mountains, it says they create the rain shadow effect. You want to know that. All right, interesting fact of the day. Ready? Okay, a mountain. If you look at there's like snow on the top of the mountains. It's colder on the mountains, right? On top. You know that. Like Gatlinburg, it's really cold up there. Okay, so on the north side of the mountain is where the sun hits most of the time. So the north side of the mountain is actually warmer a little bit. But if you think about it, all right, I'm about to impress you with my knowledge. Y'all ready? Okay, the north side of the mountain. So here's your mountain. Here's the ice. So all that's ice. Okay, so the north side, I'm going to put mine over on this side. There's the sunshine coming down. Okay, well, so what happens is it melts the ice on the north side, but doesn't melt all of it. But y'all know, like last week, it wasn't snowing anymore, but as it got warmer, the snow melted, and then it got colder, and what happened to the snow? It wasn't snow anymore. It was what? It was ice. So the north side of the mountain is really ice. It's not so much packed snow, but more melted ice, and because it melts, it makes it really steep on the north side. So the north side of the mountain is the hardest side to climb. Although it's a little warmer over there, it's harder to climb on the north side. So that's why I like the brand North Face. That's why their gear, their jackets and gloves and shoes and all that are supposed to be equipped to climb the north side of the mountain. Impressive that I knew that. I learned that in college, one of the many things. Okay, in a geography class, and I don't know if that's true. My geography teacher in college told me that. I was like, hey, that's pretty cool. So if you think about it, North Face is like weather protectant or rain gear, or nothing we really need in Alabama, but we buy it anyway. Okay, and then ponds and lakes. Ponds and lakes have stratification. What does stratification mean? Layers, right? Stratified as layers. Okay, so if you look at that top picture, it shows the different layers and the different amounts of oxygen. And then you can see how it would turn. The different layers, that's like the thermocline, makes it turn over. So highlight under ponds, highlight thermocline and turnover. But it's colder at the bottom, right? You know, if you've ever been swimming in a deep river, it's colder at the bottom.
Why is the water 22 degrees in the summer?
It's maybe really cold places, like Antarctica. But it's going to turn over. The hot air is going to be rising, and the cold air is going to be sinking, and it's going to turn. But I know the cold normally has more oxygen in it. The cold water has more oxygen in it. So the fish are going to be where the oxygen is, because fish need to breathe. Okay, and then the last part of the notes just says microclimates, and that's like just little bitty things. Like on one side of your house there's a shade, so you might have more mushrooms growing. But on the other side of your house there's more sun, so that's... in my house it's dead grass, because I can't keep my dead grass to grow.
What's thermocline and turnover?
Thermocline and turnover, it said, see how it's like different, the stratification right here? But because the warm sinks, it's always turning. The water is always turning. Okay, and then microclimates was like small climates. When I think of microclimates, okay, this is going to gross y'all out. Ready? But in my backyard, I have like a backyard that's just very, very small. But in my backyard, it's got a green circle that's plastic in the middle of the yard. Anybody else have one of those? It's like dark green. You do because you live next door to me. Anybody else? Come on. It's like the septic tank. Sheila's like on my road. Anybody in the backyard? It's a big green circle, and I think it's where my septic tank is. I'm pretty limited on my knowledge of septic tanks, but anybody?
It looks like a plastic top.
Yeah, it's like a sewer. It looks like a plastic maybe garbage can top, but it's a circle, and you can't pull it up.
Is it really small?
No, it's like two.
Yeah, way small.
Yeah, mine's not that big. Mine's like this big.
Okay, well mine's pretty big. It's pretty big. Anyway, okay, so that's like the septic tank top. But I want to say there's like a warning that says don't try to remove the top, or I haven't ever tried, but I don't think I could get it off if I wanted to. Okay, but around that, like all my grass is really green and pretty. And then if you get on further out, like several feet away from it, it's not green and pretty anymore. My grass, I have a hard time with grass. So why is it really pretty right there beside my septic tank? It's fertilized, right? And it's also getting more water, too. But it's fertilized.
Water your grass for it to grow.
Oh, yeah, I don't do that. Maybe that's the problem. He said I have to water my grass for it to grow. All right, Logan, why do I have to water my grass for it to grow?
Because I need nutrients.
Water is not nutrients. Come on.
Water is nutrients.
Photosynthesis. The sunlight splits the water and it makes sugar. Okay, tonight's video, make sure that you watch it. There will be a link on too. There's just not yet. I got to get on that.